Okay, so this is um one of the I don't even know what number we're on now. One, two, three, four, five, six. So yeah, six. This is the sixth cabin fever reliever in our season of 2025. And we have Ulana. I can pronounce her last name, but I will let her introduce herself. And this is a class of illustration and folklore.
Hi, everybody. This is Ulana Zahajkewyck with a Z, starting with a Z and ending with a Z. Um, so Kelly asked me what I wanted to teach, and I said, well, let's go ahead and do a little bit of folklore. Um, I really grew up getting a ton of stories read to me. My my aunt would come over. She lived in town. She would like walk over. It seemed like every night, like almost every night, and actually read stories to me in Ukrainian and show me these like amazing illustrations. So like this is one of the books. I I saved all the books that I got. And those are all like printed in Ukraine. Like many of these are printed in Kiev. So I really that kind of unlocked my imagination because a lot of the folk tales involved animals, everything was like anthropomorphized. So I really got a sense of just like magic and the you know there were also lessons in there. It was like a lot of fun for me. And it's also amazing how, especially if you've had a lot of, reading when you're a kid, you don't even realize how much of an influence some of these stories have had on your life. And not even that, I noticed a lot of the colors that that were in some of these books, just incredible. And I remember finding a book as when we were cleaning out my parents' house when they passed, and my sister said, "Oh my God, it's like looking at your paintings, looking at some of these books because the color palette was really similar." And I hadn't read those books in like, 40 years, so it was really interesting. Um, so let me see if I can share. Oh, let me see. I'm gonna have to send you a request.
Yep, got it.
Okay. All right. Let's hope that this works this time because um
Looks like it's working. Yep, we
okay.
see it.
All right. I want to do full screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it. It's not full screen for us, but
Oh, okay.
it's still big. Unless maybe I should remove your spotlight. Maybe that'll help.
Can you see the second page?
No, it just says folk tales right now.
Okay, you know what? Let me go. Hold on. I think this is what happened last time.
Yeah, we skipped it. Yeah, we skipped it like stuck on one.
It was like stuck on one.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we'll do it. Let me see.
Oh, that looks good. That's better.
Can you see the second page?
Yeah.
Great.
Now it's back to the first. Yep.
It was so bad because I was sharing it last time and it only showed like the one page, and I'm like talking and talking and talking. We're like, wait, what are we talking about? So, so the image that you're looking at is actually from a story that my cousin wrote, and she would tell this to her nephews every time she saw them. So probably like once every couple of weeks when she would see her nephews, she would keep continuing the story. And so she asked me last year if I wanted to illustrate this folk story, and I said sure. And so um she just had she printed it out for the family. She didn't I don't know that she has any interest in publishing it, but this is one of the images for that. So, but that is a really great example of, folk stories because they're basically stories that are passed through generations um in an oral way. So, the telling and retelling of these stories. And so folk tales can include myths, legends, fairy tales, fables, like even, tall tales. So the structure of this, so you're definitely seeing my second page, right?
Yes.
It says structure. Okay, good. So, um, usually it starts with some sort of problem or dilemma. There is a main character. The problem needs to be dealt with. Um, and then the conclusion is, the problem is solved or comes to some sort of answer. So some of the things that you need to think about are where is the setting of this story? Who are the characters? What's the dilemma? Like, what's the problem? Um, is there going to be a journey to discover the answers? And lastly, like, is there going to be a lesson that's learned? Or, um, is there a moral to the story? So I just wrote like a silly one. So my example is like, once upon a time there was a boy with a bird on his head. He walked many miles to get the bird to fly away. When he reached the forest, the bird flew away and left him alone forever. He lived sadly ever after because the bird had become his very best friend, only he was too silly to realize it. So it's like you can write a really simple story that's just like a paragraph, and that can be the basis of your entire story. So, Joseph Campbell, he wrote this book called The Hero of a Thousand Faces. So he was studying myths and stories from around the world, and he started noticing a real pattern with all these stories and something he called the monomyth. And so he sort of figured out that it was a kind of hero's journey, he called it. So there's a quest. The character goes on a quest and it starts in the sort of regular, ordinary world. And then the quest, traverses into like a special world. And then from that special world, this character has to journey back to where, so it's a kind of a it's circular. So some like hero stories that you might know about would be like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, Handmaid's Tale. There's like a million of them that kind of have this structure of the hero's journey. Um so these are the steps, and there are other steps, but I just chose to do because some of them are a little bit like, I would say, passe. Like if you see them you'll know why they weren't included. One of them is like lured away by a woman or something. Like, no, these are, so I didn't include those. Um so first would be the ordinary world. So this is where the hero is at home, kind of in their natural environment. And then suddenly something happens, and there's what they call a call to adventure. And so basically, the hero is given a challenge to, like, to do something, to go on this, sort of journey. So refusal to call. So basically the hero's like, no, 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 I don't want to go. I'm too frightened. It's too frightening for me. Um, Number four, introduction to the mentor. So, when you're thinking about this, like I automatically start thinking about like Lord of the Rings and when Gandalf shows up in town and sort of encourages Frodo to go on the journey. Um, so the mentor comes in and kind of encourages the hero to sort of step forward and move forward into this sort of journey. So the hero departs, they kind of cross over like the first like threshold. So it starts to get a little bit dangerous, but they're entering into this sort of special world. Um, and then they start the trials and the tests, and the hero's going to start going through these challenges that keep getting basically more and more difficult. So the hero starts to face their worst fears. So some of the most terrifying things, now the heroes has to sort of step up and locate their courage to like move forward through this. The ordeal crisis, the hero might face a little bit of defeat and sort of has to pick himself back up. Nine is the reward treasure. So there's like a situation, the hero is like overcoming it and overcomes it and basically gets to um claim their reward, whatever that is, like a potion or like money or like friendship or who's to say. Then they start the road back. So they have to go back to their natural world, kind of leave the special world and go back to their natural world. The resurrection. So there could be a possible showdown, like a last showdown between like good and evil. And like Lord of the Rings, you think about, they've climbed up the mountain and he's about to throw, you know, they want to throw the ring in the fires of Mordor and um you know, just then he's thwarted and it's sort of like a battle to, destroy this evil. And then we have basically returning home, and so returns home with the elixir or the potion, the treasure, or but in truth it's the knowledge kind of coming back, and they call it magic flight. And so the hero comes back like a changed person. They come back transformed with all the stuff that they had learned on their journey. Um, and so when you think about this structure, if you're thinking about like writing a story, it's like a really great outline to think about because it gives you everything you need from like top to bottom to soup to nuts. Um, so another thing I wanted to mention was Grimm's fairy tales. So um the brothers Grimm, they were like librarians, and so they kind of went around Germany collecting folk tales. And then they published their first volume of tales in 1812. So what they were doing, they were trying to preserve their culture, they're trying to preserve stories that they had heard. But also they were kind of trying to figure out if there was like an essential truth about the public or about how people were thinking. They originally were kind of gathering these up. I think it was really more for like historical preservation for like, but really from an adult point of view. And then they slowly started editing these stories so that they could appeal more to children. So each iteration of these stories that were kind of made a little bit more kidified, it was like kind of transformed a little bit so that they were you know, more basically more kid friendly. And these stories are like still incredibly relevant worldwide. So there's so many different stories like Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel, Rumpelstiltskin is also in there. So some of these illustrations are from Grimm's fairy tale, like Kai Nielsen's Hansel and Gretel image and Dulac's Cinderella, Arthur Rackham, and Walter Crane. So I also put in some examples. Now, I kind of did a little bit of a bend to the examples that I used because I mean each every you know country in on the planet has their own folk tales. And so I kind of concentrated on my world, which is like Ukrainian folk tales and stuff like that. So but I believe Joseph, he's not Ukrainian. He might be Hungarian or something, um but so I wanted to show you some of the just a couple of examples of some Slavic folk tales. This is Nina Denisova. It looks like it could be a lino cut or scratch board. Um, this is a very famous story. Kelly probably knows is the mitten. So,
Oh yeah.
Rukavichka. So, it's like a Ukrainian like national story. So, um, very, very famous. And what the artist that um,
Jan Brett.
Jan Brett did like a version of this story that's absolutely mesmerizing. I think it's kind of like the quintessential, if I can if I could be so bold, it's like the quintessential version of this story, I think, illustration wise. Um, and there's a couple of other ones. Uli Kriha, Volodymyr Holuzov. Um, so what you see in these are again with the and anthropomorphization, um animals dressed up, and they have their own personality, and they're doing as humans do. And these are some others. um Lisbeth Swerger, she does these really hauntingly beautiful, they're almost like they seem very simple, but they're incredibly beautiful illustrations. And she's done more than one sort of fairy tale. Ivan Bilibin, he's Russian illustrator, but he always does these sort of exceptionally beautiful borders around his work. Um, but you can also see it in this work as well. So you see how appealing they are, and they're sort of luscious, and they have these beautiful colors, and they're really appealing to audience to kind of keep them. So this is the fox and the crane. Um, it's like a pretty famous Ukrainian folk tale. Um, this particular book um, was from was printed in Kiev in 1977. Volodymyr Holozubov. So it says Lisichka ta Jurabel. So basically it's Fox and the Crane. I just loosely translated because I my Ukrainian is very my reading especially is very weak. So I didn't want to burden anybody with that, especially myself. Um so so in this first panel you see the fox invites her crane friend over for supper, for some delicious supper. So she offers the crane some delicious porridge with some milk, and she kind of puts it on a little plate for the crane and offers it to her. And the crane tries to take its beak and poking and poking and poking on the plate, tries to eat this meal, but her beak can't reach the food. So the fox is like, "Oh, that's too bad. You can't reach this food. I'm just going to go ahead and polish this off." And so the fox ends up eating all the food right in front of the crane. So the crane's like, "Oh, okay, I see this how this is." And so the crane says, "Well, fox, please come over to my house for a meal. I'm going to make you a really beautiful meal." So the next day, the crane prepares a tasty meal. It's like meat and potatoes and beets, and crumbles it up and puts it in this vessel and offers it to Fox. And so the fox tries and tries, and fox can't reach the tasty meal because the vessel's way too deep. Um, and the crane said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and eat it." And so the crane goes ahead and eats the entire meal in front of the fox. So they part ways, and their friendship is ruined. So the moral, because a lot of these tales will have a moral. The moral of the story is basically essentially you reap what you sow. So I just think it's so funny that this story didn't end up on this sort of upswing. It ends up in this sort of this disaster of like parting of the ways. So for your assignment, what I'd like for you guys to do is I would like for you to create your own version of Fox and Crane characters. So, um, I would like for you to think about the story that I told you. What are some of the characteristics of Fox and Crane? Um, think about their personalities. Mischievous, clever, um, petty. Where would you like your particular characters to be located? Because it doesn't necessarily have to be Ukrainian soil, it could be your neck of the woods. What era were you thinking about? Is there a particular style that you like to work in? What are the characters going to wear? Is it going to be reflective of this particular era and location? What season is it? So all these little details matter about how they look. Um, and also think about um or what style where is it representational, cartoonish? Is there going to be a specific color scheme that you're going with? Um, just kind of interpret them in your style. Use your vision, create their little outfits. I always find it helpful if I'm doing an image that I'm not, maybe I'm not familiar with these specific animals or something. I'll just get a reference just in general. Like I'm not copying the image. I'm literally just looking at it as a reference. So, um, there's a little picture of a fox and a picture of a Ukrainian crane. So this is generally how I start. So I start by making a list of the personality traits and some of the details that I want to include. So, for the crane, I was thinking, to me, the crane seemed a little bit naive at first, very open, like kind of like, oh yeah, well, I'm totally gonna come, to dinner. I'm, super optimistic about what's gonna happen. Um, I thought maybe a little bit more reserved. I still wanted to have like a Slavic bend, but much more simple. For Fox, obviously Sly. I wanted to do a sort of a timeless, but if I'm going to think about it, maybe like the 1900s or something like that. But I wanted the Fox to be vivid, have some patterns, really play up how Fox sees herself. So I'll kind of keep sketching and working at this, modifying it, figuring out what colors look best. I'll try different sizes, like if I'm making something digitally, which this was, then this was, I did this in Procreate. I'll put things on different layers. And so like the hat, like maybe I want a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit smaller. And then I start, I usually have a pretty good idea what colors I want. Like I always have to ask myself, what's an important color of something that I know that this has to be? So if I'm thinking about a fox, I think it's probably going to have to be orange or like red or in that sort of warm family. And all the other colors, like they could come and go. Um, that can change if I needed it to. And so a really easy way that you can sort of play around with that is create the image and then start playing around with the hue and the saturation. And it might give you just like a slightly different bend to the, so you could, it's a little bit more obvious with the cranes because, I made these and I thought, oh, that's really cool. Like I didn't even think of doing like a turquoise cape or something like that. But I certainly could have done any number of these. And then you can also mix and match. Like let's say you're like, well, I for sure want a yellow hat, but then I want a different cape. And so it kind of gives you a sense of like the possibilities of some, of something with your illustration that maybe you hadn't been thinking before. Um, and I'll usually set up my color palette on a different layer and I'll set it up to the side so that I can easily go back to it. Um, and then I just had an image of the two of the characters interacting with one another. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions or I wanted to give you a little bit of time and you could even just sketch out loosely some things and if you felt like sharing, I'd love to see it. We can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think we'll just sketch a few things then since we have the time, and then we'll check in back in with you in a little bit.
Okay.
Can you put the story up by chance?
Yes, I sure can.
Or the at least the references?
You wanted the references?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Just gonna make a little bit bigger. Um, Obviously you don't have to do a Ukrainian crane, but they're very specific looking.
I think we can take another 5 minutes or a little more. So maybe take a minute or two to finish up. All right, I'm ready. Okay, I'm gonna remove your spotlight so we can see people's stuff. If anyone wants to share.
I'm so excited.
All right, let me zoom in on alchemy first. Okay.
That's so, oh, I love it.
Oh my God, I do too. The fox
Oh my
is like
God, the fox
the
is
character.
so beautiful. Oh my goodness.
I love the like the coat on him
Yeah,
too.
it's like a bubble goose.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Thanks, Alchemy.
God, it's so beautiful. Precious.
Yeah. Nadine, do you want to show yours?
I didn't get
I
clothes, so I just
love
colored
it.
them.
You colored them. Yeah.
That crane looks amazing.
Right? I love how it like the tail turns into this yellow color.
Yeah, I love it. Its stance. And the fox too. It's like
Great job.
sassy.
Yeah,
Thank
Nadine,
you.
you're saying how you weren't you don't draw much?
I don't draw much, no.
Well, you
I
did a
love it.
really good job. I am super impressed.
Really
Oh, well,
good.
thank you. I appreciate that.
You got the essence.
I'm working on it.
Nice. All right, I'll share mine. Let's
Do
see.
it. Do it, Kelly.
Well, I'll show you my first sketch. So I was trying to do a little, I mean,
I love it.
I'm such a realist that I was trying to push towards the cartoon side. So then I tried to get it a little bit more solid
Oh,
here and try
Nice.
to exaggerate a couple things. But I guess my favorite is the leg warmers.
I
I
love
love
it.
the
And then like
look on the face of the I forgot the name of the bird now.
the
The
crane.
crane, okay, because he's kind of looking like he almost has a crush on the fox.
I
Yeah.
love the crane's like tube on its neck.
I know.
It's
I'm like, he needs something.
like a mock turtleneck,
It's a neck warmer.
neck warmer. I love the fox's outfit too.
I don't
Reminds
know.
me of Link from
I don't even
Zelda
know what it
character.
is.
I love this.
He's like a
Uh,
professor.
yeah.
He is so good. So
Yeah,
good.
it's a Ukrainian crane. I was just teaching art adventure in the school, and they had the Japanese cranes, and the Japanese cranes are very distinct as well because they have red on their heads. So,
Oh, that's
but that's
cool.
cool to see a Ukrainian crane. And we have sandhill cranes, so
Oh,
what we know in Minnesota. But
yeah.
anybody else?
I could I didn't like the story, so I made something different and I made a storyboard because I don't draw well. And this I'm tired of people not listening to each other. I'm having a hard time. So mine is about Tulip. Tulip Tulip wants to go see the world. It knows it doesn't have long, so it asks Robin. And Robin brings Tulip to the top of buildings, to different flower pots, to riding the river, and then Tulip decides that she wants to go back home again with all the rest of the tulips.
I love the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I wanted this story. I made My friends found out that I can um, make make up stories and sing songs to tunes and have them in key and meter and rhyme, and I just do it. It's just I make them up. I can't. That's just something I can do. It's one of those foo-foos, and so I liked that one story I made one time about Tulip.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you took it a step further and made a new story.
Yeah,
And a
that's
storyboard. I wanted because there's no
Yeah.
way. Yeah, because I'm the studio. I'm trying to finish it up. It's still a mess, and so I'm here trying to put stuff away. I have a class here on Friday with my Rebel Arts Group painting to test out painting. So I just do it quick.
Thanks, Candy.
I love it.
All right. Sam, did you have time to draw anything? Oh, you're still on mute, honey.
I just did a quick sketch, not my best, but I did like let's see if I can.
Oh.
I have like can't
Oh my
so
God, I love Crane.
I did a little punk rock crane with some
Yeah,
fishnets
I
and
love it.
I like the boots on the crane.
Boots.
yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to do the boots and then a
And like a
piercing
choker.
and a choker. And then I was thinking like this one's like the innocent little fox, but it's got little eyeliner, so it's trying to be rebellious with its friend, the
Yeah.
crane. And
Yeah.
the fox is just a little shorty.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
fox reminds me of your bear characters a little bit.
Well, I will tell you what the inspiration was. I was listening to the radio this morning and they were doing like a story where they'd tell a story and then play a song with it. So they were like making up different restaurants and where you would like what music would play. And the one of the radio people made up a funny story about how the restaurant's called Soup Soup and only your grandmother, like it's your grandmother's love. So I was channeling the grandma energy with the pearls and then the little dress. So I
Grandma
thought that
wears fishnets, huh? That's an
no,
interesting
no,
grandma. I
no.
want to meet her.
The crane is not the grandma. The fox is the
Foxes.
grandma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kelly, you got this all wrong.
No.
Good description.
Maybe I was just fantasizing about a grandma with fishnets. Sorry.
I'm a grandma and I dye my fishnets.
Bring it
Nice.
on.
Well,
Love
Candy's
it.
got the fashion, that's for sure. So thanks,
Oh
Sam.
my gosh,
All right.
so good.
Got a couple minutes left. Does anyone have any questions for Ulana?
I really enjoyed your class and just
Thank
like the
you.
storytelling and how it's like made from beginning to end. I never really thought about it the way that you explained it, having
Yeah.
read them before in my life. And
Hmm.
if you brought back Mitten, which reminds me of when my kid was little because I had the Mitten
Yeah.
story.
Yes.
So,
It's so funny. It's like almost everybody's heard that story.
yeah.
My son got to make his own version of it this year. They made like a mitten and then they stuck the animals
Yeah.
inside or something. So
Yeah,
Well,
that's so cool.
I
Um,
will share one thing. This is from last year. Ulana taught us how to illustrate a recipe. And so I chose Norwegian porridge. And so I just wanted to share that I still have the recipe.
love it.
And the other day I was looking for it because I
Yeah.
couldn't find it in my pantry. And I forgot I had this. I could have just used this. So it was super
You could have
helpful.
just used it.
I'm going to stick this on the wall in the pantry as a piece of art, and actually, then I'll have the recipe in the pantry all the time. And
Good
it's like four
thinking.
ingredients, but I always
Good
like, is
thinking.
it a half a cup or is it a full cup? Is it okay. So very helpful. So illustration can be incredibly helpful.
Yes.
It can also be a pain because the last illustration I was looking at was an illustration of the lost wax process in sculpture. And
Okay.
it was like 8 different illustrations. And I was trying to explain it to kindergartners and first graders. And I'm like, I don't even understand. I understand the process, but I don't understand these illustrations. So we'll
Oh,
just get
wow.
this visual aid. But Ulana is just amazing, talented illustrator.
Thank
I have
you.
some of her work in my house, and I just
Aw.
love looking at it, and it just reminds me of there's such happiness. And unlike
Yeah.
those grim fairy tales that are sugar coated, really,
Yes.
in America, because if you actually read the grim real German ones or what the Europe,
Yes.
they are brutal and gross and
Yeah.
morbid and
They're all some of them are awful. Like the Little
awful.
Mermaid, like just dissolves. Like, isn't it like the ending that she just dissolves into foam? Like she doesn't get anything.
I don't remember. I just remember the Cinderella one where they actually like cut off the foot and there's blood everywhere to try to fit.
Oh my God. Yeah,